Hi, and welcome to the A Little Spoon Kitchen. Today we are going to be making stuffed cabbage. This is a family recipe of mine. I have been making it this way since I was maybe 6 with my dad. None of the ingredients have changed in all of the years that my family has been making this. A lot of the times when it comes to my recipes, I will tweak according to my taste, but this one just is perfect as is. So no changes there. It's really simple. It is hands-on. There's definitely some hands-on prep and cooking and all of that goes into this. But the ingredients are simple. The steps are relatively simple, and it is just the perfect comfort food. Anytime that anytime I want to feel like I'm closer to my family, or I want to, have a little bit of nostalgia, I turn to this recipe. So let's go ahead and get started. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the tomato sauce that these cabbages are actually going to get braised in when we've got them all stacked in our dish. We're going to start with 3 cups, about, 720 milliliters of V8 juice. I know that sounds kind of weird. I usually am very big on from scratch. Most ingredients are down to single ingredients in my recipes, but like I said, this is a family recipe. This is how we've been doing it my entire life, and I really didn't want to change that. So V8 juice. I know a lot of recipes will probably use something like just a tomato sauce or tomato juice or something like that, but V8 has a bunch of other ingredients in it that give it a really savory flavor that then turn the depth of flavor to this meal that much higher. So that's why I'm using this. No, we are not sponsored. Do I drink V8 juice with a squeeze of lemon and soda water? Absolutely, I do. But it's just really great for this dish. So I'm going to open this up, and we're going to pour ourselves our V8. Actually, I'm going to close this bag up and shake this because I know you're supposed to shake it. There we go. Because we're not using the whole thing, so I don't want to have any stuff in the bottom of the... I honestly, I might double this. What do I got here? 46. Do I double the sauce recipe? If I use this entire thing, I can double the sauce recipe. I feel like I should just do the normal recipe. I can make more later. Okay. So 1, 2. You can never have too much sauce for the stuffed cabbage. As the cabbage braises, like your stuffed cabbages braise in the sauce will get a little bit of the meaty flavor because it's got the beef and the pork kind of meatloaves in the cabbage that are cooking. It really does take on a really nice flavor. And I really like dipping bread into that sauce once it's cooked and it thins out. It gets just really nice. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like you can never have too much sauce. I do on more occasions than most double the sauce recipe, but this is really all that you need to cook it and have it be good. Okay, we're gonna need, let's see, I guess I can do the tomato paste first. We'll do an entire can of tomato paste. Yes, I did open this upside down. It is what it is. The bottom of the can was dented, so I couldn't get the can opener around it. There we go. So we opened from the bottom. Let's get tomato paste in. You're going to use the whole thing. This is a 170 gram can. If you have more tomato paste than this, that is the amount by weight that you need, so you can weigh it out. But it is about 6 ounces. It's about 2/3 of a cup if you're going by volume. Wait, not 2/3 of a cup. I heard the 6 and I did 0.6, 3/4 of a cup. 8 ounces. Okay. Now we've got our marmite. Open the jar. Opening a new can of marmite. I can't open it. Marmite tends to get pretty sticky. And if it gets around the rings on like between the lid and the jar, yeah, she's stuck. We're gonna open a new one. Oh my God. I want to know what it is with everything all of a sudden being really difficult to open. Got it. Okay. So Marmite is yeast extract. And even, I know like that sounds crazy to people as like an ingredient. A lot of people in the UK spread this on their toast. It's actually really good. It's an interesting flavor. But for soups, stews, sauces in particular, it really, because it's a yeast extract, it adds an almost like bready, like deeper flavor into whatever sauce you're doing, and it just really rounds out the depth of flavor. I like to add it. I have what I call umami bombs in a lot of my recipes, and it usually includes like miso paste, soy sauce, garlic, tomato or mushroom, Marmite. Like there's a bunch of those ingredients that have a bunch of really savory elements. And I will whisk them all together into like a really big paste and then like drop it in with my aromatics. And it really, really adds like extra oomph and depth of flavor. And like this is an ingredient that's always in that because it's just perfect. And I promise you, if you start using it in your soups, stews, and sauces, you will get through a jar. I know that it's like, when am I ever going to use that? Yada, yada, yada. But if you use it consistently in those foods, if you're making those foods consistently, it's a really good thing to have on hand just to add a little bit of flavor extra quick. It sounds better if you say they derive it from beer production. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I should say this now that we've gotten started and I've done my intro. For anybody who is here and you're not here when this video is, or when we are streaming this live, because this is a live stream right now, I'm actually going to be talking to people over here off to the side. I've got the chats up for both Twitch and for a YouTube stream. We're streaming simultaneously to both platforms. I'm going to be answering questions. I'm going to be talking to people. So you may hear me kind of like having an off-sided conversation. I swear I'm not talking to myself. I'm just talking to the people who are currently watching. They are going to be asking questions. So I'm going to be trying to throw out different things, pieces of information as I'm cooking. And they're also going to be asking questions. Hopefully, if you're watching this at a later date, between me and chat, we will answer all of the questions that you have about this recipe. If not, feel free to put something into the comment section. I like to go ahead and check at least once a week. I'll go in and I'll check for comments in my YouTube videos to see what's going on. See if anybody needs any help. Oh, this was supposed to be a tablespoon. Okay, so I pulled out a teaspoon, but that's okay because 3 teaspoons is a tablespoon. We'll just do 3 of these. Three teaspoons is a tablespoon. Wow. Did I blow your mind? My husband's very impressed with that knowledge. That's just math, baby. Here we go. Do I spy Marmite? Yeah. Yep. Okay, we've got somebody. There you go. Nice. Butter and Marmite. That actually sounds really good. I just had a slice of sourdough earlier, and I feel like that would have gone, the butter and Marmite would have been very good instead of just butter and salt. Gizmo, you should be able to type in ! website to get the link to the website. Oh, recipe? They're specifically asking about the website, not the recipe. Hey, Scooter. Okay, next ingredient. We need a 1/4 cup of the juice from this can. Now, before you go anywhere with this, for the people who are cooking along, you do also need the sauerkraut that's in this can. So we're gonna use the juice. Some of the juice is gonna go into our sauce here, and then the rest will get drained off, and the kraut will be used later when we're kind of assembling everything into our pot. So do not just drain this and call it a day. We do need the juice here. So I'm gonna grab my, do we get to call this a handy dandy can opener? Oh, please. This has been giving me a little trouble lately, and I'm sad because this is my favorite can opener. Oh, we're working today. Cool. Okay. I like to use Bavarian style sauerkraut for this recipe because it adds just a little bit of sweetness. All of the ingredients that are in this sauce, by and large, are acidic. We've got tomato juice, we've got tomato puree, we've got some tomato paste, we've got our sauerkraut juice. Like, all of it's very, very tangy, very sharp, very, like, just really bright and acidic. And so having the Bavarian kraut is sweeter than regular kraut. And so what we're attempting to do is just add like a little bit of sweetness. And I will say too, if you cannot find Bavarian sauerkraut, it's just the style and it is sweeter. If you cannot find it, you can get some regular sauerkraut. It's not a big deal. And you can add sugar to taste. So make the whole sauce, get it going, let it cook for about 10 minutes so that it actually really kind of comes together. Give it a taste and then adjust the sweetness to whatever you want it to be. But know that whatever sweetness it is, it will tone down once you have also your meat and your cabbage and everything cooking alongside of it. So it's really up to you. I wouldn't say to make it really, really sweet. This really doesn't do that much. It just kind of tones down a little bit of the acidity. Okay, so we're gonna do this. And I'm just basically just turning the can upside down and squeezing into it. I'm gonna move this over here actually, so we're a little bit more in frame. There we go. I'm just doing this, and you only need 1/4 cup, which I have. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just dump this can in. Come on. And I'm actually gonna move this over my sink and just let it drain by itself and stay off to the side. Okay. Okay, so we need 60 milliliters, 1/4 cup into our sauce. Okay. I'm gonna need to take a whisk to this in a second. Okay, and then the last thing that we're gonna add is we're gonna do, it's 2 cans. It says 2 cans of tomato puree, 2 15-ounce cans, which is essentially 850 grams worth of tomato puree. I'm actually gonna take the lid off of this guy, and I'm just gonna blitz the tomatoes. These are whole tomatoes. They're whole peeled tomatoes. I'm just going to take an immersion blender, and I'm going to just blitz them right in the can. You can purchase tomato puree already done. Absolutely not a big deal. I just didn't have any, and I know that if I just blend this down, it's tomato puree. Do not use tomato sauce. Do not get a can of, don't confuse tomato puree and tomato sauce. Tomato sauce has added ingredients, usually salts and other natural flavors and all that kind of stuff. Use specifically tomato puree that is just tomato that has been pureed. Because we already have the V8 juice, right, that we're using for the flavor. You don't want to add extra stuff that is not necessary. Yeah, we say Gołąbki in our family. I don't know. Bop it twisting ring. It does kind of look like a bop it, doesn't it? That's funny. You need the can opener. The can opener is by Kuhn Rikon. They don't make them anymore, which is why I'm always like really worried that like this one's gonna go. I got this for a Christmas present from my aunt, who probably had absolutely no idea how much I would love this. This is supposed to be a left-handed can opener. And so I can, essentially use my left hand instead of cranking. It's always on the right side when you're doing the right-handed can openers or regular can openers. And she bought this for me, and I've had this for like 15 years, and she probably has no idea how much I thank her for it every time I need to open up a can. Okay. I am actually going to get some of this sauce out first, if I can, to give myself some space. I don't think there's much in here. Okay. Just a little bit. This blender's about to go inside. Okay. Oh gosh. This is my favorite way to make pizza sauce. It's just like do it right in the can. And we're done. Okay. Tomato puree in. I'm going to whisk this. Immersion blenders are fantastic. If you want, like, I don't get me wrong, I love my power blender. Like, I have a Vitamix that at this point is like, it's probably like a first gen Vitamix, because like I was that crazy person that was like, oh, this is good, before they started like doing the ones that were like wide and squat for like doing nuts and flour and like all that kind of stuff. And I only have the tall guy. And I got it and I love it. I love a smooth soup and sauce. But sometimes when you just like don't care and it's like something that's rustic and you don't feel like taking out a whole blender and cleaning it and whatever, like an immersion blender is great, especially like something like this where the bottom half disconnects and I can just like clean it super easy and you don't have like a corded situation. So great. So great. Okay, so I'm gonna get this sauce on the stovetop. She is already done. Also, I'm gonna try not to make a huge mess. Okay, so I'm gonna put this behind me, and we're just gonna let this go to town. We'll bring it up to temp. Once you start to see it bubble, you can go ahead and just throw a lid on it and put it down to like low and let it sit. And it'll get all lovely and all of those flavors will really meld together while we're doing everything else. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to get our cabbage leaves ready. Move these off to the side. So essentially what you want to do with your cabbage rolls, depending on, I'm that person at the store that takes all the outside leaves of the cabbage off before I buy my cabbage because I don't want to spend money on cabbage leaves that I'm not going to eat. And they usually have a little trash can or something sitting right there. And I'm like, why not? So I've already taken off all of the gross outside leaves of the cabbage that are like really dark and thick, or black or torn or any of that kind of stuff just from being out in the field. Those are already gone for me. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this over And I'm trying to cut into the core of the cabbage. So this is going to get cut out. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm kind of going to turn it on its side, and you're going to bring your knife in. You can see at like a 45-degree angle, and you're basically creating a kind of cone inside that we're then going to dig out. Yeah, I'm not gonna, I don't know. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to do that in a store. Like, I feel like you probably should just buy it, but it is produce. Yeah. I don't, well, I mean, I did buy it. I just bought it with less weight. I don't know. Hey, every penny counts these days, right? All right, so you're gonna go in at an angle, and you're basically just gonna cut at an angle into the bottom. Okay. And some of the leaves might come off. That's okay. Don't worry about that. As one just immediately fell off. Look at that. It's like it knew. Just kind of keep turning in a circle. You'll feel it start to loosen. Okay. So we've got a little bit of a core. I'm actually going to continue cutting deeper. I want the hot water that we're going to put these in when they boil to get as far deep down in the leaves as possible. Okay. So we've got a little bit of a core, our kind of first stuff. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start going a little less of a 45-degree angle, but I'm going to keep cutting all the way down at a slight angle to make sure that I'm getting really far down into this core. But now you can kind of see what you're doing because you've already opened up a little bit of that bottom spot. I might even use a spoon to get the rest of this out. We'll see. And it doesn't have to be the whole core, just enough. Just enough that you can kind of see down into the layers of the leaves. I don't feel like perfection today. We're just going to use a spoon to get what I've cut out. Okay. Whoop. Okay. So that's about, that core there is about maybe 55-65% of the leaves are going to get water down into them. The ones that aren't going to get water from boiling as well down into them are going to be like the really small ones that you probably can't even use for this anyway. But that is essentially what you want to end up with. Okay, so we've got our cored cabbage here, and now I'm going to fill up a pot with water. Hear me banging around off stream? There we go. This is not the moment for jokes. What is just joined in? What's traditional to stuffed in cabbage? So typically you're kind of doing like a meatloaf mixture. My family did pork and beef, just because pork is fattier, and so it doesn't kind of constrict and get like tough the way that ground beef sometimes does when it's cooked at a high temperature. It's not like chewy; it stays nice and soft. But we also do onion, and we do rice and eggs as kind of like a meatloaf mixture. The rice is a great added starch to also then keep it soft, right? So the rice is going to retain moisture, the pork is going to be fatty, the beef is going to bring the flavor, and that's all kind of going to go together. Now, I will say, get this started, get that boiling. I'm gonna salt this pot of water as well. I will say that you don't have to stick to those ingredients if you really don't want to. I have done this with just turkey, and it turned out fine. It definitely wasn't, it's not as flavorful, but if you want like a light tomatoey, like, you know, just really light flavor in general, and you really don't want to have that like really beefy, deep flavor, you can use turkey, and this turns out fine with turkey. I've done turkey and pork. I've done just turkey. Also, if this is something that my sister actually did to the recipe, and I did actually put it in the notes for this recipe on the website, if you are pre-diabetic or diabetic in any way, you can add cauliflower rice and substitute cauliflower rice for the rice and put that into your mixture, and it works pretty much just as well, and it tastes really good too. So yeah, great stuff. Okay, salt this. Don't be scared of salt. It's just the water. Okay. Then I'm going to get a lid on this guy and give it a stir, one last stir real quick. Because I can see that we started to foam and bubble. Okay. My water is already almost boiling. Thank you, induction. I have an induction cooktop that I love. Anybody ever wants to geek out about induction cooktops or different kinds of cooktops, I'm happy to chat about it all day long. Yeah, okay, so before stream started, this is so interesting. Okay, so Nation X in our YouTube side said we only recently found out how versatile cabbage and cauliflower are. Gołąbki, kimchi, cauliflower rice, whole bunch, right? So before the stream started, I was actively thinking about how good this would be if you did like an Asian, like a Korean fusion. And we put like if you did this with like kimchi and then the filling was a more Asian like flavored, almost like if you were gonna do like a kind of like a dumpling filling, I feel like this would be incredible. Just throwing it out there. If anybody feels like trying that, I honestly might try that at some point. But I feel like that would be so good. Okay, I'm boiling. I'm going to put my cabbage into the water. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to kind of hold it down a little bit under the water. I'm going to just stick a spoon right into the core. And I'm going to try to get as many of the bubbles, because there's air in between all of the leaves, right? And so what I'm going to try to do is get quite a bit of air out of those leaves. I'm going to tilt the cabbage in a bunch of different directions and let it just kind of bubble out. You're never gonna get all of it. Don't try. Like, it's always gonna float. There's nothing you can do about it. There's so much air in cabbage, like in between the layers and stuff, that it's always gonna float. But this is just kind of to help it sink a little bit further in. We are also going to put a lid on this, so it won't like truly matter at the end of the day. So like don't worry if it's still floating. That's not a big deal. I'm just trying to get hot water in between as many layers as I can. Okay. So we've got that. And then we're going to lid this one as well. And I'm going to turn that a little bit lower because I don't want it to boil over. Today I learned buckwheat can be used instead of rice in authentic gołąbki too. Or Gołąbki 2, not sure about being 100% safe for diabetics, but it has a lower glycemic index than white rice. Nice. Thank you for sharing that. That's really cool. Now it is time to start on the filling. I, in fact, do not have pre-ground pork or beef. I mentioned this before we started the playlist in the live version of this video. Bear with me. If you do want to grind your pork and your beef from scratch, journey along with me. If not, feel free to start cleaning some of your dishes and then come back once I've kind of am ready and we're at the step where we start mixing our filling together. Move this stuff out of the way. Okay. We're gonna let that cook, the cabbage, by the way, for anybody who's cooking with me today. We're gonna let the cabbage cook for about 10 to 15 minutes, covered, and then we're gonna check and we're gonna start pulling off any of the flexible layers, and we're gonna set them aside and then kind of keep letting it cook and pulling off any layers that they're like flexible and they won't break anymore. So cabbage can be pretty delicate. Especially like the leaves or the stem of it, like it can just crack kind of suddenly when you're trying to break it off of the whole of the head. And so cooking it kind of gives it a flexibility that it didn't have before. And we're not searching for like fully cooked, falling apart. We want it to just be enough to be flexible for us to kind of get it off, set it aside, and then we will actually fully cook those in a little bit later. This is the only thing, it's the only thing that I changed for this recipe was like a technique for the cabbage leaves. Growing up, we would just submerge the entire head of cabbage into water and we would cook it for an hour. And what ended up happening is the outside of the leaves, which are the bigger ones and the ones that you want to use for the cabbage rolls, they would cook so much they would tear and break and smush, which is a great texture when you have your final product, but not when you're actively trying to like roll the stuffing in the cabbage leaves. And the inside ones were still waxy and uncooked. And so what I kind of devised is to kind of par cook everything and get it to the point where you can take it off of the head and then individually resubmerge those leaves so that they can fully cook all the way through, like by themselves, not tucked in against each other. And that way they're cooking evenly in the water. And then those kind of get taken out when they're at the perfect point. And you can go ahead and you can roll and do everything with the stuffed cabbage to your heart's content. So that's kind of what I came up with, and it's been working pretty well. It's just really hard to do stuff when it's like cooked unevenly. So this makes it not like that. How many takes? Okay, somebody just asked me a question about the tikka masala picture. I have a chicken tikka masala recipe that just came out, and I did a splash shot. I hadn't done splash photography in a while, and I was like, I need to make a mess today. And I have a splash shot of the chicken tikka going into the masala sauce, and they're asking how many takes it took to get that image. So it actually took, I think it took maybe 12. And I have 3 others. So I had 3 splash shots that would have been perfect. One image that was the base before I had done anything so that I could do a composite, because once you start splashing, stuff kind of goes everywhere and then it's never clean again. So in the editing process, you can have your food, like you can have the splash shot and just the splash shot and then the original image, and you can bring the splash through and keep everything else clean because you've stacked images on top of each other and edited it. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Thank you, hun. And so I think maybe I got 12 pictures, and that one was my favorite one. I have another splash shot that was really good, and then like a couple others that were okay. But yeah, I didn't do too many. It was just kind of like I had taken all the pictures, and then I was like, okay, now that we've taken the pictures that I need, let's start playing around. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Would it make sense to ladle water into the opening for the core? No, because you're submerging. Like ladling water in isn't going to do much if you're already submerging it underwater, right? So like essentially the same thing, but with added water pressure because it's being submerged. So you probably do get more water in it when you're submerging it than if you're just trying to ladle it and have gravity do the work. Let's see. Oh, there you go. My family made this a lot when I was growing up, but I've yet tried making it myself, so this is perfect. Good. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Does the Gołąbki sauce have a name? I have so many Polish shops here in the UK, just wondering if canned is popular. I do not know the answer to that. I have never seen a can of like stuffed cabbage sauce. Like, I don't know if that's a thing. I'm the only thing that I could think to do is literally just like use V8 and not put anything else in it. Or just use like tomato sauce and not put anything in it. Like, that's probably the closest that you would get. I don't know. I've never seen like a prepared sauce for this before. This really is meant to be like a homemade meal. So I don't particularly know what you would look for. But I do feel like the ingredients here are common enough that I don't think you would have an issue sourcing them either. Like this is I'm pretty sure this is everywhere. And nothing else was really that, like sauerkraut, tomato paste, tomato puree. Like, none of those are really crazy to source ingredients. So I think you'd be okay. Okay. I'm gonna get meat out of the refrigerator. I bulk cook quite a bit. So basically this came from like more meat, and I just will I'll weigh out in a bowl what I need for recipes, and then I will separate them and freeze them in sheets. I'll like stack them and freeze them. And then I will like half defrost them in order to then grind them up. And it's far cheaper. The quality is higher. I like to do it this way. It's not necessary by any stretch of the imagination. And I know that it is a lot of extra work, and so you kind of have to be like willing to do that, but I like it, and so this is what I do, but you definitely don't have to. Okay, so what I'm gonna do for this is I'm actually gonna do like a handful at a time of each one, just so that it's already kind of pre-mixed well. Oh, I need the plunger for this. There we go. Do keep in mind that beef is pretty much okay to kind of like touch without issue, but you are using pork, so like try to remember like what you've touched with your hand that you've also touched pork with before you've washed your hands again. So just like kind of be careful with that. Am I Polish? Yes. I am Polish and I am Czech. $50-50. Stand mixer go burr, yeah. I'm 50-50, and actually it's kind of funny. My dad was 50-50. His father was Polish and his mother was Czech. And then my mom was 50-50. Her dad was Czech and her mother was Polish. And so we just happen to combine in the same way. What drinks would go well with this dish? I drink it with, okay. So I really like to eat this with mashed potatoes and rye bread. And I genuinely love a cold glass of milk, which I know odd, but that's just me. No, a cold glass of milk. That's what I'm going with. Milk does just go with everything. I agree. Beer, that would be your vote. Honestly, I bet you a really good lager would go real nice with this, especially if you've got rye bread going on too. Nothing too crazy. I know. The question was what drink would go well, and then I immediately named side dishes and not a drink. But just so we're all aware of what we should be having with this meal. I won't fault anyone for just having a roll of stuffed cabbage for lunch, but mashed potatoes and rye bread with this meal just make it top tier. Yeah, he just asked it, huh? Does the fat content percentage matter with the beef? No. Nope. I guess the thing is, I guess it depends on how long you want to cook it in your oven. So you're essentially braising all of this. We're kind of poaching it, braising it. You're cooking this in liquid. And so when you cook meat in liquid, it's more gentle, obviously, than searing it, pan frying it, frying it, deep frying it, whatever that looks like. And so the proteins don't constrict as much. And then because you're cooking it in water, or in a liquid, if you're cooking it in a liquid, it also, it keeps it soft. It doesn't let it dry out. So it's not constricting it, but then it's also not drying out because there's moisture there. And so what happens is the fat content, the only thing that it really would do is how soon is it ready out of the oven, right? So the longer you cook it, the softer and softer that internal kind of meatloaf is going to get, and the leaves are going to get. And the fat content in the meat is just gonna make it it'll be softer faster, if that makes sense, as opposed to the lean beef kind of constricting and then relaxing. If there's more fat content, it'll happen faster. But that's really the only difference. It's not going to change the flavor. It's not going to change the texture, really. It really just would change the time. But even that's not a big deal. I'm almost done. So 5-minute warning, less than that. 2-minute warning for anybody who is cooking along with me. We're going to be getting into making of the filling in just a minute or two. How many Polish recipes have I published? I think only 2. No, 3. I have a Polish mushroom soup I have the pierogi, and then I have our stuffed cabbage. Yep, just 3. We really, honestly, like, we didn't have a lot of Polish food unless it was a holiday in my family. So it's really like the big meals are the only ones that I ever learned how to cook. I really want to learn how to make kolache, like in the worst way. It is a complete dinner. Yes. Soup, pierogi, and stuffed cabbage. Like, honestly, if I could have all 3 of those in one meal, like, that's an end of life meal right there for me. That ticks all the boxes. All the comfort boxes, I should say. Okay, that's both bags. I lived in Pittsburgh for years and never once ate a pierogi. I'm very sad for you. They're so good. That makes me slightly sad. If you ever see pierogi, I mean, Pittsburgh would be like, honestly, Pennsylvania would be the place to do that, which is why I'm sad, because now if you went somewhere, I don't know where you live now, but if you went somewhere and ordered pierogi, there's no guarantee that it's going to be like quality. I'm gonna wash my hands and clean up my space real quick, and then I am ready to make filling. For those of you who are cooking along, or I guess actually, how long has the cabbage been on the stovetop? Maybe 10 minutes? We can give it a check and see how we're doing. Let's give her a little check here. What do I want to do? Yeah, we'll let her keep going. It's not going to hurt anybody. Okay, let me clean this up. Let's give her a wipe down. And then we're going to go ahead and make our filling, and then we'll check our cabbage. Okay, so I've got my ground beef in a bowl. I like to use a wide bowl like this instead of a deep one for all of my kind of like meat mixture fillings. If you're making dumpling filling, if you're making meatloaf, if you're making meatballs, like anytime you're doing a kind of meat mixture, it's really nice to have a wider bowl because then it's shallow and you can really kind of get in instead of having to dig underneath and pull up. There's less compression in the meat as you're going, and so you don't really get, you can stop it from turning into like a really dense meat mixture, a really dense filling. It just makes it like really easy to kind of aerate and keep it nice and light. It is, right? Like, look how great. Doesn't that look, that looks perfect. So happy. Okay, we're gonna chop up an onion. Okay. Let's get this going. I think rice is probably the next step, to be honest. Let's see, where am I? I'm trying to follow along with the actual recipe online and not just like what's bouncing around in my head. It's one of those things when you make something all the time and then you write a recipe for it, it's just like, in my mind, I can do anything at any of these times because I've made it so often, but I'm trying to stick to like what I wrote in the recipe so that I'm not messing with you guys. Let's see. Okay, so I have the rice in here. We'll do the rice first just because that's how the recipe has it. I'm going to take a small pot. This is all part of the filling. We are making the filling. I'm going to take a small pot. I'm going to get my rice. Okay. You're going to be using Oh, by the way, you should have 2 pounds of pork and 2 pounds of ground beef, okay? This recipe makes a lot of stuffed cabbage rolls. Part of the reason that there's so much that's going to be made is because it's always better when it's stacked and you have like 2 layers of rolls on top of each other so they really kind of get in there and cook together. If you have like a single layer, it tends to kind of dry out in a weird way, but the stacked ones always come out perfect, especially that bottom row. And so I like to make sure I have enough to make enough rolls that fit into a container, and then we'll have 2 layers. And so that's why there is so much and why you will be making so much. But it's kind of like bulk cooking. You can make it for either a lot of people if you're going to have some kind of, family dinner or something like that, or you can have a lot of meals that are frozen and then you can defrost them and have them anytime you want over the course of several months. So yeah, 4 pounds of meat plus rice. This is a family meal. Like I said, this is a family meal that we have been making. We've been making this way since I was a child. I stuck to that and I did not change a thing. It is what it is. Other than how I'm cooking the cabbage, nothing has changed. Okay, so for the rice, we've got 1 cup of a long grain rice. I like to use jasmine rice. It's probably my favorite rice grain style. I don't know what the terminology is for that there, but that's what I like to use in this. If you get like just a medium grained rice, that's probably fine as well. I would not go into sushi rice or like arborio rice or even an extra long like a basmati rice. Like I probably wouldn't do those either. Like stick to something that's a little bit more all-purpose. We'll call it all-purpose. So 1 cup, which is about 205 grams of rice. I'm actually going to use my scale for this because I really don't feel like pulling out a measuring. I'll pull out measuring cups for liquid, but like I can't be bothered when it comes to dry ingredients. Okay. So I'm looking for 205 grams. I am not going to wash this rice. I know it's blasphemous. I know. I'm really sorry. I promise it's for a reason. The starches in the rice bind the meat mixture, the filling, very well, and I want to keep those starches in there. So I'm not washing this rice, but I do normally wash my rice, as should everybody. Please, for the love of God, wash your rice before you make rice. If you're just eating rice with something. Okay. I'm going to cover this with water. I'm literally just going to go to my tap. I'm going to cover it with water. I'm going to go about 2 inches. I guess, what is that? 5 and change centimeters? No, it's more than double. I don't know what the exact measurement is. I probably have it written down, actually. Huh? Is it? 2 inches is 5.4 centimeters? I don't know. Sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm just trying to keep track. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll answer it. Okay, I'm gonna go, I'll show you guys where I'm at. You almost can't cover this too much, just saying that. You like can't, like the water can't be too much because we're parboiling it. So you're not cooking this all the way. It's not meant to soak up all the water. In fact, you don't want it to soak up everything. Okay, so I'm just gonna put this on my back burner. I'm gonna get it going. This is gonna cook for 10 minutes. Rice typically cooks for about 20 minutes. We're half cooking it, parboiled, okay? And I'm just gonna let it like boil. Like I'm not getting the water boiling and then turning it down or any of that kind of stuff. We're just gonna let it go. But I am in fact going to need, I'm gonna need my strainer here, so I'm trying to get it. All right, now I've got the sauerkraut in it there. Now my strainer is available. Okay. So we've got our rice going. I'm going to chop up an onion, and the onion is going to go in. Somebody asked how if a pot sticker or a dumpling was different than a pierogi, or how they were different, or how they're the same. Just in general, Asian dumplings. So there is a difference, but I am a firm believer that like there's far more similarities in the food than there are not. Yeah, the ingredients are different, but I feel like the process is super similar. The times when you're making it, because usually like if you're making pierogi or you're making like lots of pot stickers or lots of dumplings or something like that, like there's usually multiple people around a table, all with their own job or all making a bunch of them. And it's kind of like, it's a very like labor intensive, but like repetitive, calming, fun thing to do as a family. And so I feel like that kind of shared is like super similar. And like the process is very similar. But by and large, Asian kind of dumplings will typically use a hot water dough. And so you're kind of making that dough, but you're using hot water to like immediately relax the gluten. Our pierogi don't. We use just regular like cold, like regular water, tap water. And we will let that relax separately. So we'll make it, let it relax, and then come back to it. Trying to think. And then, I mean, the fillings are quite similar. I would say though that like, although meat is a traditional flavor, like having like beef or something like that is a traditional flavor in pierogi, more often than not, you're gonna find mushroom, sauerkraut, onion, and then some kind of like a potato, like a cheese and potato filling are like the most common. Pierogi also has like prune or blueberry or like kind of filling. So like they'll even go out like down into the sweet side. Which even like, I mean, Asian stuff does that too with like red bean paste and stuff like that. Although that's usually a steamed one, but like, or like a bao. But like everything is like, to me, it's very similar. The ingredients are different, but the process is kind of the same. And so I just consider them the same thing. I know like food wise, ingredient wise, it's not. And even technique wise, sometimes it's not, but it feels the same to me. I don't know if that makes sense. It feels the same to me. Steamed dumplings would be the main difference as opposed to fried. Well, I mean, we boil our dumplings. Okay, so essentially what you're gonna do to cut your onion, now that I'm here, I finally made it. You're gonna cut the top of your onion off, and you're gonna keep the roots intact. Cut down the center, peel off your outer layer, your little crispy skin here that we don't want, and any layer that really isn't shiny, because that won't cut well. We don't wanna deal with that. I will probably tear up during this section because actually I have contacts in. I'll be fine. It's like wearing goggles. I forgot I had contacts in. Love it. Okay. I just, the like cultural and like familial aspect make them feel very like the same to me. Even if the ingredients and the techniques are different. I know I kind of have already said that, but I'm gonna uncover my cabbage. Okay. Okay, so now that we have our two halves, we still have roots intact. I'm basically showing you guys how to dice. I'm sure if you already know, just dice your onions. But we're going for like a medium small dice. It's gonna cook for so long that it's all gonna melt in there and it's not really gonna matter. But I do like to have more than like a fine dice. I want it to feel like it's kind of chunky in this mixture here. So essentially what I'm gonna do is I'm first gonna cut kind of like halfway up. And the reason that I do that is because these sides tend to have like really large pieces here. Because if you're cutting straight down this way, when you go to cut sideways, like this side never, like the sides just always end up being like too large pieces. So I'm about halfway up, and I'm gonna come down, and then I'm gonna go down in strips, about like 1/4 inch. I think that's like, I think 1/4 inch. That's what 0.25. So that's probably about 0.6 centimeters, something like that. And then we're gonna do the same distance apart that you did going in strips toward the root. You're gonna go that exact same coming back. And please curl your fingers so that you don't cut your little fingies. Nobody wants that. Okay. Got a couple of pieces here. There we go. Okay. So you can see like we've got kind of a nice chunky dice. It's fine enough that it's going to melt in, but it's also going to stay pretty much, like it's going to have like nice little pops of flavor as you're eating. Okay, so same thing. I'm basically, like I said, like I'm cutting down the middle so that this piece isn't too big when we get there. Okay. This is going to get put in. Wow, what is it like? Contacts are awesome. I'm going to put this in, and we're going to then add in, actually, let me check my rice. That's looking pretty good. Okay. Got our onions in. And then we're going to do eggs. And then we're going to come back to our rice. Okay, we've got 2 large eggs. It's going to be somewhere between 50 and 60 grams an egg if you're not in the US. And I don't think sizing is different. Like I think it's pretty standard across the board, but just in case. Eye armor. I know, that's what contacts feel like. Love it. The best thing that you can do if you have issues with onions, honestly, contacts are the best thing, or goggles. If you don't feel like looking a little weird in your kitchen, go for it. Wet paper towels are a great way to kind of tamp down on fumes. So like if you wipe down your board, like continuously wipe down your board, wipe down your knife, cover any cut onions or scraps with a wet paper towel, it will kind of keep those fumes off your face. I like to chop. I typically will chop with a fan on, with the exhaust fan on, so that it's sucking the fumes from the onions up. Because you have like sulfuric compounds that will like kind of escape, and then they get in your eyes and it hurts. And that's why you're crying and all that. Another thing you can do is keep your knives really sharp. So the reason that I guess maybe sometimes it's worse or sometimes it's better. I'm not really sure. But if your knives are sharp, it's not going to be as bad. Every time, like the reason that the compounds are released from the cellular structure in the onion when they're crushed. And so if you're slicing, right, and you're not crushing, then less reaction is going to happen. Less of those compounds are going to get into the fumes of the onion and then like kind of carried in that aroma. And so if your knives are dull, you are going to crush more than slice. And so making sure that your knives are always sharp is another thing. But you should always make sure your knives are sharp, because the most dangerous thing in your kitchen is a dull knife. Please protect your fingers at all costs. We don't condone harming ourselves in the kitchen due to faulty hardware. So make sure you keep your knives sharp. Okay, let's check out our rice. She's probably done. Yeah. Okay. So let me pour off some of this so you guys can see it a little bit better. Okay. So as you can see, our rice is not fully cooked, but it has puffed a little bit, right? So we went from our kind of like slightly translucent. This is the wrong place. We went from our slightly translucent, really dried out rice, and now we've puffed slightly. But if I were to, I don't have a spoon. Okay, if I were to say put some of these out and crush them, it almost feels like al dente pasta, right? Where like you can crush the outside, but the inside is still not cooked all the way, and you can feel that it's hard. And you see how it cracked instead of smushing? It's because it's parboiled. That's where you want it to be. Did I just show that over the bowl? Here, let's do this one more time. I don't know where my hands are. I'm not looking at the camera enough. Okay, so we're smushing, and the outside, I can feel the outside starch come off, but then that internal kind of column is still there. I feel like we can maybe see this. Maybe. That's what we're going for. I'm going to drain this into a colander, and then I'm actually going to run cold water over it so that I can stop the cooking and cool it off before it goes into my meat mixture, right? Because we do not want our filling to have piping hot rice, especially with our eggs. We don't need cooked eggs in this until we want them to be cooked. So basically just pour it into like a strainer or a colander and then run water over it. Okay. Shaking it out, getting as much water out as possible. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal if there's still like water in there. You don't have to like squish out the rice or any of that kind of stuff. It's not a big deal. Okay. But now this is chilled and all of that's going in. Okay. Yeah. We don't want scrambled eggs in our filling. Ugh. Not what we want. Was the rice rinsed? Not as much as you think it, like it's not. Right, okay, so there is a really big difference. I don't know if this is the point you're making, but just in case. When you're cleaning your rice, you want to put rice in like a bowl or the pot that you're going to be cooking with, and you want to get water over the top of it, and then you're going to take your hands and you're going to claw and kind of move your hand around in that pot to really force the rice to kind of beat up against each other and clear that starch, right? And you're going to do that. You're going to pour off the cloudy water that you make, add more water in, and then continue to kind of stir until you've gotten the water to where you can see clearly from the top layer all the way down to the, like from the top of the water all the way down to the rice. If at any point it's like murky enough that you can't fully see like individual grains of rice, that you need to repeat cleaning. Putting your rice in a strainer and then rinsing it like that is not going to clean off enough of the starch. I know I've seen people doing that as a way to clean the starch off of rice. That's not, they're up against each other. There's no agitation. It's just water pouring over it. You might get like surface starches, but you're really like, there's just not enough going on that you're going to get all that starch off. And if you want to experiment, if you're gonna make, you know, a pot of rice or do whatever, or you're gonna make like I have a rice cooker. So if you're like going for a rice cooker or whatever, separate it in half, say whatever you're gonna make, and like do one in a colander and one do it in a pot, and then put the stuff from the colander into the pot and see how much extra, like there's so much extra starch that does not clean your rice. So even what I just did, taking it directly from the stovetop and rinsing it like that is not going to take off as much starch as if I had sat there and kind of gone like this. Now, the starch has also gelatinized quite a bit on the outside of that rice. So I'm worried less about it kind of dusting off and coming off the outside of the rice because it's already cooked partially. So the outside where you're getting most of the starches off has already kind of like combined into the structure of the rice, and you're not going to lose a lot of starch anyway. So hopefully that was helpful. Okay. We need just salt and pepper. That's it. That's all we need left. We're doing a teaspoon of each of those. It's about 2.5 grams I use Diamond Crystal kosher salt. We talk about this in every single stream and pretty much every recipe. I have specifically Diamond Crystal kosher salt. Weigh your salt if you're not using Diamond Crystal kosher salt. Salt structures weigh different amounts, and so going by volume can cause you to undersalt or oversalt your foods. So it's important to weigh your salt if you're not using the exact brand that's listed, if a person does give a brand. You've been cleaning your rice wrong. Well, now you know. Now you know. I also need a teaspoon of this, and I do not have pre-ground pepper, so we're just gonna get a little bit of a forearm workout here. 0 days. 0 days without talking about Diamond Crystal kosher salt. Really is 0 days without talking about weighing salt. That's really what it is. I do not have iodized I don't have table salt. I have finishing salt. I have rock salt. I have the Diamond Crystal kosher salt. And then I have some other kind of like flavored salts or smoked salts and things like that, but I don't. I really like Diamond Crystal kosher salt. I think that the flake structure just lends itself to just really blending in well with cooking. And it's such a forgiving salt because of the flake structure. It's lighter than Morton salt. Morton salt has a more compact crystalline structure. And so it takes longer to dissolve into foods. It's saltier because the structure it's denser, right? It's denser and less flaky than the Diamond Crystal. And so if I just did a pinch of like a Morton salt, kosher salt, over a Diamond Crystal kosher salt, I will be putting more salt into the pot if I'm using the Morton versus the Diamond Crystal. So like, just because it is denser. And so it's easier to not over salt when I'm using Diamond Crystal kosher salt, which is why I like it. Is it's like there's a lot of room, there's a lot of forgiveness and like kind of flexibility, play in the joints, all of the different synonyms that I can say for that when it comes to cooking with it. So I like and baking with it. So. I mean, hold on a second. What do you, resinosity, what do you mean? Does the same go for other grams like spelt and farro? Do you mean like cleaning? I would say yes. Like logically, yes. Yeah, rinsing and cleaning, yeah. Is it true that pink Himalayan salt has metal in it? I don't know. I mean, I imagine, yes, something has to cause the pink. I don't know what mineral it is that causes that pink, but I don't know. Don't know the answer to that. Okay, I need a teaspoon of this. Let's do. Is there a weight for this? What do I have here? 1.4 grams. I really feel like I just want to eyeball this. We're just going to eyeball this. That's good enough. You need a teaspoon. You need 1.4 grams. Go for it. However you feel like getting that amount into your bowl, you do that. Okay, so we've got all of our ingredients in our bowl. Now we're going to mix. I know I mentioned, I guess I'll stay here. I know I mentioned kind of that claw, right? When we were cleaning our rice, we're also going to be using that when we're making our meatballs. I'm starting to think more and get a little paranoid over the cabbage back there. Grinding the meat definitely took a while, but I think we're still okay. So we're gonna mix, and then once we're mixed, we're just gonna set this aside, and then we're gonna start messing with the cabbage. And you're basically just kind of going in and making sure that we're creating a uniform mixture. We're just kind of flipping it around and giving it kind of sticking little claw hands in. Doing that. Okay. That looks pretty good to me. Just want to make sure that we're getting the salt and pepper really moved in and incorporated so you don't have like big patches of salt or anything like that. The rice is evenly distributed, so is the onion. And if you have your like pre-packaged pork and beef, right, you want to get those mixed up really well. So you don't have like textural differences. All right, that looks good. So essentially, this is now like the filling for your stuffed cabbage, right? I'm going to set this off to the side. I'm going to wash my hands. And then we can start to talk about getting our cabbage leaves removed and set aside. And assembling our stuffed cabbage. I'm probably going to have to be off camera to think about how I want to do this. Well, I'm going to be in the sink, I think. Don't move it yet. Let me just kind of consider what I'm going to be doing. Okay, so grab our cabbage. I've already got like a little guy floating here. I'm going to get some tongs. No, we do not have any breadcrumbs. Loose but incorporated mix, or making it fully mixed like a sausage. Okay. You want it fully incorporated, but you want to keep as much kind of air in the mix as possible. You don't want to compress. So when we're kind of stirring, you're kind of keeping your fingers kind of just like this. We're not actually like pushing and mixing and binding or any of that compression, because that compression is going to make it really dense. And we want all of the moisture in the sauce to get really in to the stuffed cabbages, into the rolled cabbages. Yeah, no, don't squeeze. We're just mixing. Oh, that's a good question. If this wasn't a family recipe, are there any spices, etc., you would like to experiment with? I feel like garlic. Like the fact that garlic isn't in this blows my mind. Immediately garlic would go into this. I think I mentioned earlier that I would love to do a Korean version of this and kind of have like the fusion come together. I'm pretty sure. You know what? I'm gonna be honest because like I like it popped into my head to do that. There's probably already a recipe for like a stuffed kimchi or something like that, or like some kind of like Korean cabbage rolls like that. I don't see how that would not exist. So it probably already exists online, even if it's not specifically kimchi. Like I can't imagine a cabbage roll doesn't exist in Asian culture. So like it's definitely out there, and I feel like I probably want to go search for that and try out somebody's recipe because that sounds delicious. I'm sure. Could add gochujang. Yeah, like right? Like I feel like the tomatoes, like tomato sauce, like immediately would want to do some miso, would want to do some gochujang. Yeah, we would be loading it up. A little bit of oyster sauce would probably go a long way. Yeah, kimchi's already made from cabbage. Like we're already there. I feel like this would be like a perfect situation. I think fish sauce would take it a little bit too much toward like Vietnamese and Thai cooking. If I wanted to stay strictly in like a Korean Chinese kind of vibe, I don't think I would do fish sauce. But oyster sauce, I would play with that. Anyway, let's stick with this recipe. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna get a nice wide plate. Somebody asked it, so I answered. I'm easily distracted. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start taking leaves off of this. This water is hot, thus the tongs. And as you can see, look at that. That's perfect for a roll. Very excited about that. And because we've cut the core, if we've got little delicate fingies, you can absolutely, like if heat is a problem, which it sometimes is for me, it really kind of depends. You can get gloves, and that will help you be able to handle these as well. These are slightly more cooked than I want them to be, but they're still going to be in much better shape than if I had dunked this whole thing into there for an hour and cooked it. If you want to take this out of the pot and just kind of like keep returning this to the pot, you can put this in your sink. The only reason that I'm doing this here is because I'm trying to stay on camera. But I would move this over to my sink, right? And I would turn the water on like halfway. We don't want it splashing anywhere, right? Because this is hot. And let it drip right down into the core and around the leaves. And it will cool it off as you're kind of pulling the leaves off. Like they'll get cool because it's right at the top. And so you don't have to do what I'm doing because this is nuts. I'm going to burn myself. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out what, because I can't even roll this around to see what leaves are where. I might have to move this. I don't think I can keep this in this pot. I'm going to just take it out and see what I can do with this. We're going to get water everywhere. Nope. Oh, I can't get it out. I can't get it out this way. I want to just dump it into my sink. All right, let's try this again. We got an over and an under here. I'm about to get everything really wet. Whew. Pretty hot. Okay. Yeah, I need cold water. Can I put this over the sink? I need to do this in the sink. It's too hot. Sorry, guys. I can't do this on stream for you. Can you turn the camera over there? Fudge! That is hot. Hey, guys, let's put our hands into boiling water. Okay, so as you're taking these leaves off, if you come to one that's still connected, right, because we did cut that core out, but you might not have gotten all the leaves, you can, or you might have gotten like the kind of where they're attached to the stem, you can cut kind of down into that, and that's not a big deal. You can do that. Can I make this work? Maybe I can make this work. It's cooling off a bit. It's still hot though. So I'm just gonna keep cutting down into that core, and I'm gonna be pulling more and more leaves off. Oh, actually, I can do this. I'm okay. It's very hot, but we can make this work. So as you notice, like these are flexible, right? We don't have, they're still slightly waxy. So like these are gonna go back into our pot. If you don't just take the cabbage out of the pot and put the cabbage into the sink, like if you really feel like it's too hard to do what I just did with all of the tongs, you can just dump it and then add fresh water to the pot and put it back on your stovetop and get it hot again. Like that's not a big deal. You can always reboil. We're making this work. I'm getting a lot of cooking liquid on my countertop right now, but we will clean, we will prevail. We are fine. Do I have gloves? Yeah, somewhere. Somewhere. You can use gloves. That would probably be helpful. You'll notice the further in you get, the smaller the leaves get, the smaller your little cabbage rolls are gonna get. That's okay. Sometimes you just need a snack and you don't want a really big roll of stuffed cabbage. Okay. I'm kind of doing like 3 leaves at a time, right? Whew. And I'm letting them release. Because if you go to pull only one at a time, then it might break because there's another leaf kind of overlapped. Ugh. Okay. Okay. Ooh, buddy. Okay, that's a lot of leaves. I think we are good. This is probably too small to get an adequately sized. Could you make one? Sure. Would it be a 2-bite stuffed cabbage? Also, yes. Really up to you about how small of cabbage leaves you want to have. I am still going to take some of these off, even if I'm not going to make rolls with it. And I'm going to continue cooking them because I'm going to chop them up and put them into the layers of our kind of assembly for our braised rolls. So they're not going to make a stuffed cabbage, but they are still going to go into the dish. And then what I'm going to do is anything that is unrollable and still waxy, I'm going to toss back into this water. And I'm going to let them cook for another 15, 20 or so minutes until they are good to go. So I'm just kind of testing, and I'm looking, essentially what I'm doing, now that I tossed them in. So like you'll notice that the more cooked they are, the more translucent they are, right? So this is still very white. Like if I actually, I'll do it just to show you. If I do this, like it's really firm. Sometimes even if like the very center ones here will probably crack, actually, because they're not cooked through. Yeah, oh, that one just cracked. So these guys will just crack, right? So we're looking to get the flexibility. I'll do one on the camera here. So if I do this, it's gonna crack. I don't know if you heard that. We'll do some ASMR. Because it has not been cooked enough, right? And so it's still super, super opaque. You cannot see through it. This guy definitely can see through a little bit. I can see kind of the color of my fingers through it, but it's still pretty waxy. These leaves are starting to get a little bit closer to where we want them to be. These were the outside leaves. This is pretty dang close. Know this, that the more cooked the leaves are when you're doing the rolling, the harder it is to roll them, because then they might get mushy, but the faster you can take them out of the oven. Because part of the process is not just cooking through our meat filling, right, and making sure that we've gotten over 165 and we've cooked everything out, right? So it's not just cooking through the filling, it's also making sure that we're fully cooking the cabbage leaves. And so we are paying attention to that as well. I think these are probably good to go. These are pretty much done. These were the outside leaves. So I don't know if you can see, like they're pretty, even the white here. Let's find another one. So like side by side, you can see how much better this one is to this one. See how you still have some whiteness kind of coming off here? It's still really cloudy and white. This is still white. This is still have some whiteness. This you can you can see individual fingers on the other side. This you cannot, not really, right? And so we're looking for almost like a see-through. It's not fully see-through, but it's pretty dang close. And so that's what you're looking for. And luckily I have some broken leaves here too that I can kind of walk you guys through. Okay, so I'm going to, let's dunk these back in all the way. We're going to get these fully submerged, and then we're going to turn them back on. I'm trying not to press super hard because I don't want to break a hole in any of these guys. We're going to be trying to roll with them. But we are going to lid it, so it should be fine. Okay, we're going to put this back on. I'm going to turn my burner back on to low. That is high, low, thank you. And then we're gonna cover again, and we're gonna let that keep cooking. And then I'm actually gonna make a couple of rolls and with the outside layers that were fully cooked. And I'm gonna start showing you guys how to assemble. We might as well while we can. So if you're cooking with me and you do have any leaves that are ready to go, yay, you can make some with me and get used to doing it, and then you can do the rest as you go. Okay, let's wipe down my countertop that is now covered in cabbage water. It's always a good cooking day when you have to do laundry after, right? Oh wow, this water went over the entire surface of my island. Okay. Okay. Cleaned. Kind of. Sopped up. Okay, you can do, I'm going to use this today. This is a 9 1/4 quart stock pot or Dutch oven. You can use a roasting pan. You can use any kind of like baking dish. I've been known to make smaller stuffed cabbages and just put them into this guy, into like just a lidded baking dish. This does not have to be fancy. When I do a really big batch of stuffed cabbage, it goes literally into my cheapest roasting dish. I think I spent $15 on this thing when I bought it. I'm sure it's more now just because that's life. But I've had this for a while, and if I make a really big batch, this is what it goes into. We don't have to be fancy here, right? It just needs to be a lidded dish, and it needs to be deep enough that you can do your 2 layers and have some extra room. Have extra room from the top of this cabbage and the lid, the top of the cabbage and the top of the dish that you're putting it in. It needs to have enough room that it doesn't like kind of cook out, and then you have like liquid coming out of the pot as it's roasting or as it's braising, because you don't want to have that kind of like, you don't want to have that happen, right? And if you're worried about that, like if you're worried that like the liquid is going to bubble out of whatever container you're cooking it in, you can put a like silicone lined baking tray underneath it to just kind of catch any of that if you're like worried about it. So like it's not that deep, like it's okay. You'll be okay, I promise. Let's start assembling. Let's start making some cabbage rolls, guys. I've got my drained sauerkraut. I've got some cabbage rolls. I'm going to bring over to me here. If you don't have a lid, that's okay. You can cover it with aluminum foil. Yeah. Good question, Lindsay. You can cover it with aluminum foil. Okay. And then our sauce. We're kind of making a station. This is very similar to dumpling making. Welcome. You set up a little station and then you go bit by bit by bit around in a circle to make your stuffed cabbages. I told my kids I was making stuffed cabbages and they went, "My cabbages!" And I was like, "I'm raising you right." Good job. Okay. I had a whisk. I'm just going to give the sauce a quick mix to make sure that we're well combined. Oh my God, it smells so good. Okay. Ladle. Okay, so I'm going to grab a ladle. I'm going to take some sauce. We're going to cover the bottom of the pot with sauce. Probably about 1/3 of what's in your pot. Okay? We're going to take some kraut. You probably won't end up using all of the sauerkraut unless you want this to be like super tangy. It's really up to you how much you use. What dish? No, the liquid in the dish is going to keep anything from sticking to the sides or burning on the bottom. We don't need to spray or prep anything, Lindsay. My wife's grandmother was Polish, and now she wants me to make stuffed cabbage, so then make it for her. Could you add them to ice water to stop them from cooking? Do you mean the leaves? I think you mean the leaves because that was a couple minutes ago. Yes, you could blanch. You can blanch your cabbage leaves. I wouldn't say that it's, I mean, I kind of feel like blanching them would be like a little overkill. You can just run cold water over them and they'll cool off pretty fast. I just was trying to stay on camera and not be like off camera in my sink. So we did it with some hot cabbage leaves. Not a big deal though. Okay. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna start rolling as many leaves as I have available to me right now. The first thing that you're gonna do, right, is you're going to kind of determine where the bottom of your leaf is. So this one broke a little bit and I'm kind of missing this part here. And you can keep it on if you really want to, but I actually like to have extra cabbage in the pot along with the sauerkraut that we've added to add like a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of textural difference. And so what I'll do is I'm actually gonna just cut off the bottom so that now this full section here becomes the bottom of my stuffed cabbage. And I'm gonna give this just like a little chop with my paring knife, like a normal human being. I'm gonna dump it kind of in, and then I'm gonna flip this over, and if you can tell, we've got this like really thick stem piece right here. I'm gonna cut that down. And the way that I'm doing this now, we should have flexible leaves. Remember, if I'm pressing on it at any point, it shouldn't crack or break. Otherwise, they should belong in that pot over there. They should be cooking in that pot so that they can get to the point of this. So you should be able to press down nice and flat. And then you're gonna take a paring knife and you're just gonna run it along the top here so that it's almost like you're butterflying, so that it's the same thickness, not the same thickness, but it's a closer thickness to the rest of the leaf, right? Okay, so you're kind of taking off that little extra like hump that runs along this main stem here on the leaf. Okay, and the leaves are, like you can see, like they're obviously like kind of dimpled and wrinkled and stuff like that. If you cut into one by accident, that's okay. It's not a big deal. Don't worry. It will be fine. And I will show you a couple of different ways, depending on how big that tear is, to fix your problem. If it's a really minor tear, just adjust your knife and then keep going down the stem and set it aside, and it's not a big deal, okay? And you can roll that just like any of the cabbages. If you cut off like a whole section of leaf, I'll show you what you can do when we get there. But right now, this one's a pretty perfect one, so I'm not going to do it with this one. So I'm going to actually take, this roll that I previously made, and you can make different lengths of stuffed cabbage based on the size of the leaf. Okay. So the length is the only thing that should change. Decide how thick you want the filling for your stuffed cabbages to be and stick to that filling thickness. Because if you change the thickness, it will cook at a different rate than the other ones. So even the small ones need to be as thick. They're just going to be shorter. Okay. So we've got our cabbage roll. You don't want it to be so long that you can't fold the sides of the leaves over. This is kind of like making a burrito. You want to be able to fold the side leaves over and then roll. And so if you have them too long, then you're not going to have the ability to do that. So that is something to kind of consider when you're making. But you can see kind of this is next to near an outer leaf, and this is all the filling that I'm going to be adding to it. Okay, you're going to kind of give it a half turn. Okay, so you've got it a little bit rolled, and then you're going to take the sides and you're going to fold them over, and you're going to kind of tuck them and then keep rolling. And then that is your first stuffed cabbage. Okay, that's going to go into our pot, and then we're going to go to our second one. Okay, this is the same thing. I've got this like really weird bottom here that got cut. This is going to be a ginormous leaf, but I'm also, again, it's not going to be any thicker. I maybe make it longer, but that's going to be it. If you don't want to have thicker chunks of cabbage in, like just kind of hanging out in the pot, you can chuck these, right? Anything that you cut off that is like the thick stem, you can chuck it. My dad liked to just toss, like he just kind of chop these down and toss them in because that's what he did, and he loved all cabbage, and there was not a cabbage he did not say yes to. So all of it went in the pot. I don't particularly like them because sometimes they don't cook down, and then you get like random really crunchy parts, and I'm not a fan. But you can chop anything down and toss that in, so that nothing really goes to waste. Okay. I'm gonna make another one. Okay, so same thing, right? This one I've made slightly longer, but is basically the same thickness. We're gonna half roll. Other side of I almost coughed right into the mic for you guys. Talking a lot. Okay, we're gonna fold one half, then our other half. We're gonna kind of give it a little bit of a tuck, right? Keep tucking, keep rolling, and then we're rolling, okay? For anybody, if you're wondering what I'm doing right now, let's see, we'll turn it this way. You can see. So I've got one up the side, and then I'm gonna have them have the next one here, and then here, and then here. And I'm just kind of gonna be staggering them nice and flat and snug up against each other and taking the shape of the dish as best as I can, okay? Seam up or down in the pot. Seam down. You want it to stay tucked. So essentially you're kind of rolling it over, and by the time you roll it all the way over, that seam should be on the bottom. You're just gonna pick it up and you're gonna place it right in the pot, seam side down. Okay, next one. That was a good question. How many of these do you eat as part of a meal? Typically, I'll do 1 to 2 for a meal for me with like some mashed potatoes or some bread or something like that. But 1 to 2 is that's a good meal for me. And this does make somewhere between like 24 to 28 of them, depending on what you're doing. If you get a bunch of cabbage and you're only using the really big leaves, it's going to make less. But if you use one and you're using even the leaves as they get smaller, then you're going to end up having kind of a much larger number, and it will extend a little bit further. I'm going to check on these leaves real quick. Okay. Same thing here, right? So I've got this big leaf. This bottom section is broken off. I'm not going to be able to fold this over. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice right here. Now I've got a nice sized leaf. We're going to flip it over and do the same thing that we did before. I'm just going to take my knife and start right where it really kind of bubbles up. And I'm just going to run it along. And if you feel like you didn't get low enough in the first pass, you can always go and kind of run your knife along that seam again. It's not a big deal. You can always go back and do more. Oh, for trimming the cabbage. So essentially you're using the inside of the leaf. So I'm trimming along the outside, and then I'm going with the natural direction of the leaf, right? So your cabbage naturally wants to curl the way that it was when it was in, like as a part of the cabbage head. And so that's the way, because it's going to roll easier if you're not fighting against the way that the leaf is already shaped. So I'm trimming the outside because that's where the bump of that stem part is going to be hanging out. And then I'm flipping it back over, and I'm putting our meat filling into the inside of the cabbage and then rolling with the makeup or with the leaf. Okay. Once again, kind of doing a half roll. And then we're going to tuck. And we're going to keep rolling. Same as now on the bottom. Okay. And then that's going to go into the pot right next to our other guy. Okay. I feel like I'm going to start getting to, yeah, so we're going to start getting to some kind of broken pieces. I hope. Hope we will. Cut off that. Really want to show you guys. These are all pretty intact. The thing about this style of cooking the cabbage leaves is that they really don't fall apart. Here, this one fell apart. Okay, cool. We can do it for that one. They don't fall apart as badly as they do when you're cooking it for like an hour because the outside leaves aren't overcooked. It makes it really easy to do this without having a lot of tears and problems. I used to, honestly, like when we used to make this, it was like, it was so frustrating because they would just like disintegrate in your hands. Let me cut this guy. Okay, so again, we're gonna cut along the seam here. You guys are gonna watch me make an, so I just cut through the leaf. I'm just gonna backtrack and then get back where I wanted to be. Okay, so I just adjusted my knife. I just cut through it. Got a little hole right here. I'm not even gonna care about it. Okay, I'm gonna pretend it's not there. It doesn't matter. Unless the meat is like fully exposed to the sauce, it is not, none of that is gonna matter. Okay, we got another one. We're gonna half turn, tuck. Okay, and if you have like any section, so like see, this is where the knife went through. It's like it doesn't even matter. It almost like self heals. I don't know what the word is. But you can see here, I've got like where it broke, right? This cabbage leaf broke here. Number one, I'm tucking it under, so it's kind of getting covered by the other part of the leaves. But even this is okay. Like even this is not a big deal. There's so much cabbage around it that the meat can't like kind of escape from it before it's cooked enough that it's going to stay in its shape. There we go. I'm going to cut these a little bit. Toss that in. Right, let's get to this leaf. Because we've seen better days on this guy. Okay, so this guy has some problems. He was too cooked, and I've got a whole half here that is just a mess. So what I can do, and what I'm going to do, is I'm actually going to take another leaf, and I'm going to use part of it to patch that section that I want it to be. And I'm just going to cut this off. I'm going to take this piece of leaf, so I have like an intact portion, and I'm just going to put it on and then slap down the leaf on top of it. Now, this is only something you have to worry about if you do have a broken leaf. If you don't have a broken leaf and you're cooking with me today, you don't have to like do this on purpose or anything like that. But if you've come across one that's broken, this is what you can do. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing, this little hole right here. And now I have a full cabbage leaf. And now we can roll like normal. And you're going to do it on the inside of the leaf to make sure that as you're rolling, it doesn't fall off like the outside of it. I did, in fact, forget to cut this, though. So we're going to do that real quick. Fold it over. Okay. There we go. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody who's cooking with me have any questions? How are we doing? I'm trying really hard when I'm making these not to really compress. I'm just trying to shape and make sure that they stay together. But I'm not like squeezing them into submission or anything like that. Our little meatloaf mixture here. Okay. We're going to roll. This one is a delicate. We're going to be very gentle with this guy. Okay. We're going to fold. Ooh. Okay. And then there you go. And you wouldn't even know that this was a broken mess about 2 minutes ago because she looks perfect. So this is going to go in too. There we go. Another one. Ooh, just broke that myself. So the nice thing about the broken leaves when they're really big is that like you can almost ignore it because there's just so much real estate to work with that it like doesn't matter. Okay. Okay. I've got one more leaf to do with the ones that we're ready to go. And I'm going to wash my hands and turn my oven on. And then I'm going to check on the leaves that are currently in the pot to see if any of them are ready to go. I would not suggest doing this with a different kind of cabbage. You could. I mean, I can't say that. Like, it would probably taste fine visually. I feel like it would be really weird. I don't think this guy is gonna. I think this one's a little too delicate to do. Let's see if we can get him to go. Ooh. I think we can make this work. I just cut the stem off and then ended up cutting the whole thing off anyway. Okay, there we go. Wondering about the nutrient density of cabbage? I mean, cabbage is really not a lot, to be honest. Are you saying like you want to substitute like with kale or something like that? Oh wait, I think I just read up too high. I can't scroll because I don't have fingers right now. Give me 1 second. Let me wash my hands. I finished that cabbage roll. I'm gonna turn my oven on now to preheat because as soon as we're done with the rest of the rolls and the rest of the assembly, it's gonna be time to pop that in the oven. Before you preheat your oven, please make sure that you have your racks in the right place. You need to have enough space for your pot with lid or covered in aluminum foil, in Lindsay's case. You need to have enough space for them to go all the way in there. We're gonna put it at 325 or 163 Celsius. And we're gonna let that go. Okay. Let me scroll up now that I have washed hands here. Okay, yeah, they were two different people. Okay. Yeah, dog, I don't know. I'm not sure, like, substitutions in which way? Are you talking about like a substitution for the rice? You mentioned cabbage, but I don't know how intense you want those substitutions to go. I would think that it's pretty nutrient dense. You've got a lot of different colors going on. You've got greens, you've got the tomatoes and the tomato sauce. They're all pretty base ingredients. You can probably, like, if you wanted to fix the nutrients a little bit more, I would maybe switch out V8 juice for something that, like, a recipe of your own, instead of using a V8 juice, to use, like, to make, like, tomato juice, or get just strictly, like, tomato juice and then add garlic and onion and, like, whatever spices you're seeing on the back of that ingredient list to add it and adjust it to taste, and make your own. But by and large, all of these are really base ingredients. So there's not a lot of issue there, with, like, it being, like, over processed or anything like that. You could try to add other ingredients. I know I mentioned earlier, that if you wanted to lower the glycemic index, you could use cauliflower rice instead of regular rice. My sister's diabetic, and she does that when she makes stuffed cabbage, and she said that they turned out excellent. So if that's what if you're looking for something like that, where you're basically just doing, like, protein and fiber and, like, you know, vitamins from vegetables and stuff like that, you could essentially go in that route and then take kind of the starch out of the meal. Really up to you. Not sure if that was exactly what you're asking, but I hope that helped. What would I eat alongside this dish? I make mashed potatoes, and I like rye bread to go with it. I think the caraway is just, like, a really nice flavor when you're, like, dipping into, like, a really, because, like, when you're dipping into a really acidic tomato sauce, right? And you've got, like, a beefy, tangy, acidic tomato sauce going on with the dish, and then you've got the rye bread, that earthy sweetness from the rye bread and the caraway is just, like, a really nice balance. And then we eat it with mashed potatoes, and we almost use the sauce like gravy with mashed potatoes. Yeah, I thought cabbage, like, by and large, cabbage is essentially water, but it is also green, and it does also have fiber, but we are cooking the cabbage as well, so it's not like you're eating it raw. So, like, that's really something that you have to kind of keep in mind, is that we're essentially cooking it. We're cooking a lot of that out, and then we're rolling it and using it as just, like, something to hold in our little kind of mini meatloaves, so to speak, and hold that filling in. So, like, nutrient density when it comes to the cabbage in this meal, not quite as much as if you were just, like, making a slaw. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist or any of that. So, like, I understand scientifically, like, what is happening process-wise, but I don't know what the actual nutrition density is or, like, how that changes. Okay, let's check our cabbage leaves. I'm going to pull my pot back over here. Let's see how far we got. Okay, the ones on top are not quite there yet. So in the recipe, I have to use or to cook this down for, like, another 30 minutes or so. So this hasn't really been on for that long, but some of these are going to be good because they were already pretty close. Basically kind of fishing through and finding the ones that are cooked all the way through. I might turn this up and boil this a little bit faster just to make this happen a little faster. You don't have to. You can go as quickly or slowly with this as you want. These aren't it yet. That one's ready. We'll do these guys. Like, fishing the ones out that were underneath everything from the bottom. Still a little waxy though. I'm doing a test where I'm looking at the stem section here, and I'm gonna stick my fingers under it and just see how much of my fingers I can see. This is a pretty good one. Okay, so I've got another like 5 or 6 here. I'm gonna put these back on, deep down in there, and I'm actually gonna set this up to boil a little bit, so that I'm really cooking them. I had it on low. We're just gonna bring that up a little higher so they cook faster, for the purposes of this stream. Okay. Okay, so, and again, same situation. I think I'm just gonna start to just go now. I feel like we've gone through quite a bit of the teaching, so now I'm just gonna kind of go through. You can just watch me make them. Can you show how you're placing in the pan? I switched over my Dutch oven too. Okay, yeah. You got it, Lindsay. Okay. So they're basically just being tucked in next to each other. And you can do this. I mean, if you wanted to, you could like start going around and then kind of build into the center. I tend to just kind of start and lay from one side to the other side. But as long as they're like snug up against each other, and then when you do the second layer, we're going to be putting in between all of the kind of joints there. Okay? You're welcome. Which one of my cocktails would go with this? I had to choose a cocktail from the. I mean, a margarita goes with anything. No, I'd probably choose the Oaxaca Old Fashioned mezcal. Something different, but not sweet. A lot of cocktails are sweet, and I feel like I would need something not sweet. I think that's the only one that I have that's not very sweet. In my head, I thought limoncello, but, or not limoncello, lemon drop, but I was like, eh. Actually, I have a Bloody Mary recipe. Let's stay on theme. The leftover V8 juice can become a Bloody Mary. How's that? And if you have Clamato, you can make yourself a Bloody Caesar if you want. I know. I'm waiting for the people. I'm jumping ahead of you and mentioning the Bloody Caesar so that I don't have to read it. Zero waste. Ooh, I bet you that was really good. Yellow chartreuse is yum. That's an expensive, or that's a special meal to make. Chartreuse is like difficult to find now. It's like really hard to get it at the store. It's one of those things that like only bars have at this point. I have some, but I have some because I have some green and yellow chartreuse from before the issue with supply and demand started happening. And now I'm like so spare, like I use it so sparingly at this point. I did not brown the meat. This is raw meat. It's going to cook in the liquid in the oven. Okay, actually, I just did this wrong. So, okay. Yay, I'm so glad we're here. I've gotten to the point where I have a single layer. Okay, so I have a single layer of cabbage. And now I have one that I can start stacking on top of these guys. So now that we have our bottom layer, we're going to put more sauce, okay? So we've done our first layer. Second layer, we're going to take our ladle. We're going to go with another third of our sauce. Like, I almost don't want to see these suckers. I want them to be, like, fully in sauce, okay? We're burying them, drowning them in sauce, okay? Got some more sauerkraut here, okay? And then I'm going to take this, and I can just kind of see the tops of where they are. I'm going to place that right in between, okay? And you'll notice too, like the more that I make, the smaller that these rolls are going to get, and so you can kind of fit them in these places and more tightly pack the top layer than the bottom layer. Okay, set that aside. I'm actually going to chop up some of what I've cut off here, and I'm going to put that also into the next layer, along with the sauerkraut. Might need that. Okay. That's everything in. And I guess I will check on my cabbage leaves again, see if I can pull any more out. Cutting the thick stem of the cabbage has blown my mind in a good way. That actually, a friend of mine taught me that in college. We used to get together and cook all the time. And he was like, oh, here's something, here's a tip for you. And showed me how to do that. And I've been cutting down the cabbage stems ever since. But his family put raisins in their stuffed cabbage. And I was like, bro, you lost me. You lost me at not savory. Like, all I want is savory. And it weirded me out a little bit. Oh, yeah, this is way better. Okay. Let's pick out a couple of these. Ooh. I've got a nice broken one. We'll use that. I think these are mostly good to go at this point. These are nice and cooked through. They're still a little opaque, but the leaves themselves are like really nicely cooked through. And they're just like the texture is like nice and loose. Any of the broken pieces I'm just tossing right in. Woo. Okay. So same thing. I can see my fingers individually all the way through the leaves. The white, let's see if I can find one that's, I don't know if I even have one that's not cooked enough. This one's not cooked enough. So the white stem here, I like can't see my fingers at the bottom of that, but I can here. So that one is ready. That little one broke, so I'm just gonna chop that one up and put that in to the pot along with the sauce. Okay. And we're back to rolling. And this is actually almost done. Like this will be ready in another 7 to 10 minutes. I'll have all of these rolled out. We can do our last layer of sauce on the top, and then it can go right into the oven. And then that's basically it. Gonna cook a minimum of 90 minutes. I would suggest that you leave it in there for like 3 hours. That is my favorite amount of time for these guys. It just really gets everything cooked through, nice and soft. I like the cabbage leaves to like not have any crunch. I want it to just be slop, basically. Like that, it's like the inside is like nice and compact and together, and you can cut through, but everything around it is just falling apart. Like that's the way that I like my stuffed cabbage. If you want to have a little bit of crunch and you like that textural difference, you can. The minimum amount of time I would leave it in the oven is about 90 minutes. But you can leave it in longer. Have I left it in longer than that? Yes, I have. But I feel like 3 hours is like a really happy mark for me, time-wise. How could you meal prep this? Oh my gosh, that's like, yeah, you can absolutely meal prep this. Just make it and then like freeze 2 at a time or however many you think a meal would be. And then just freeze them and defrost them as you go, right? It's a good amount of protein. Definitely. Okay. We've got some smaller leaves coming in here finally. Okay, so remember, so now I've got some that are like, you know, really big leaves that are like this long, right? But the point is that the thickness of the filling, of the shaped filling, you want to have as all of the other ones. Okay? Ooh. This one's kind of hot. This leaf is a hot leaf. Yeah, so basically what you would do is you would cook this, right? So make it all in one big pot. And then when you're done, take the rolls out, take some sauce out, and make individual meals and freeze individual meals after the whole thing is made. And then easy peasy. I will say to make sure that they all have sauce in them, because they cooked in sauce to stay soft, right? You want to reheat them in sauce as well. So just make sure that there's liquid that you're reheating with, that you're not drying out your stuffed cabbage after you sat and cooked it for so long and got it all nice and soft, and then you're like reheating it in the microwave or something like that, and it's like doesn't have any moisture in there. It's just going to dry it out. We don't want to do that. So you can freeze it, but make sure that you like are gently reheating it low. If you're doing it in the microwave, low in the microwave. We typically use the microwave to reheat this. But I do like to make sure that there's sauce in whatever dish, like whatever container I'm using, to make sure that it has an adequate amount of moisture in there when I'm reheating it. We are almost done. I'm very excited to get this in the oven. So you can see I'm just kind of picking up my knife and going over any of the parts that are threatening to cut on the leaves. So like there are a couple of nicks in this one, but it's not going to matter, right? Should have enough, just enough to have 2 layers here. And I've got plenty of room between the top of the dish and the top of the cabbage, so I shouldn't have any kind of cooking out of the pot. This looks incredibly good. Thank you. Yeah, dolomites are very similar to this. So are yebra. So like dolomites are Greek. Yebra are Syrian. Very similar. You're making a meat filling. Usually you have like allspice, or like it's like differently spiced. But then you're rolling it in grape leaves. It also has a really high acidic content. Lemon juice is usually like they're usually like finished with and cooked alongside lots of garlic and like lemon and stuff like that. So yeah, these are super similar to those, just a very large version, and it uses tomato sauce instead of like lemon. You like the backsplash in my kitchen? Thank you. You need to know how many gołąbki you can have in one sitting as they look delicious. As many as you want. As many as you want. Trying to go for the bigger cabbage leaves. I don't mind making smaller ones, but it's kind of hard to decide how many to eat if they're smaller. Honestly, probably better for portion control, but who are we kidding? I have no control around stuffed cabbage. I've got enough for maybe 3 or 4 left. Should be about right. And you want to make sure that we're not tapering at the ends. You want it to be fully uniform in thickness and diameter all the way through. Small leaves. I think I only have small leaves left. Oh, this one's a good one. What's the new kitchen going to look like? Honestly, it looks very similar to this one. The setup's almost exactly the same. Like almost exactly the same. Which I'm very happy about. Pushing it with this one. Ooh. This is gonna be a super stuffed cabbage. Very small leaf, lots of stuffing. Okay, there we go. I feel like I can probably get one. Not. We're gonna make it fit. That's kind of the fun thing, right? Is it's like you're like nesting them. And it's like not a big deal to have them like squished right up against each other. Okay. Last one. I actually wanted to have a cherry wood block top on this island, and they couldn't figure out how to do it when they built the house, so I got granite instead. But I do love I love this island. I think it's really pretty. Okay. I'm gonna do, actually, you know what I'm gonna do? We're gonna switch this. There we go. So it looks just like the original. Okay, so I've got 2 layers. Everything is done. How many did I make? Let's see. I think the same amount. 1, 2, 3. So I made 24. Because I had mostly big leaves that turned out really nice. This is my second layer. Okay, so I've got the first layer on the bottom. I've got the second layer. We're gonna pour the rest of the sauce over the top. I really want my spatula. Ugh. Every little bit counts. You don't have to scrape the pot, but I'm doing it because, like I said, most of the time I double the sauce recipe. Or I will either, and I say double, so you don't need more sauce. Like this is all the amount of sauce that you need to do the cooking. Sometimes if I double it, I will add it to the pot so that it all tastes the same. But sometimes I'll also just make another batch. So like I'll cook these in like the recipe as is, and then I might make another batch of sauce and just have it in like the refrigerator for like a week, or I'll like freeze little blocks of it or something like that, and I'll heat it up with the cabbage so that there's just extra sauce to go around. Because you will be surprised how much of this gets sucked up by the stuffed cabbages. Okay, so we have quite a few leaves left over. I have seen where people have like put leaves just flat on top. Lindsay, honestly, that might be a good idea for you since you don't have like, or I guess you changed to your Dutch oven. Do you have a lid now, Lindsay? You said you changed to a Dutch oven. Get a separate block top that you can take on and off. Honestly, I should. Oh, you do have a lid now. Okay, cool. I was gonna say, if you didn't have a lid, it might be a good idea to cover the top layer with any extra leaves, just to make sure that those are the things that are catching most of the heat and not the stuffed cabbage underneath. But since you have a lid, you're good to go. The cabbage is not gonna absorb it, the rice is. We parboiled the rice. It's not fully cooked. It's gonna absorb some of the tomato sauce, and that is going to then flavor inside, right? So the flavor is kind of cooked into everything, but it's also getting inside our stuffed cabbage. Pork or beef traditional mix, can you use beef, pork only? Yeah, you can use, I would say, it depends on, it is traditional, but it's not necessary. You can use whatever you want. Just know that the flavor and the texture will change. I do make this with turkey sometimes. I'll do either pork or turkey or just turkey. Texturally, it's a little tougher. It still cooks down to be like on the soft side because it doesn't have the pork though, it's just not ever gonna get as soft. So like, but I'll use turkey, but then the turkey doesn't have beef flavor, right? So there's a trade-off there, but you could use whatever you wanted. You could use just pork if you wanted to, but it won't have beef flavor. You could use just beef, but then it won't be as soft as it would be with the fat from the pork. It's whatever you want it to be. Okay. Just kind of adding some of the really soft ones that are squishy, right? So I've got all these extra cabbage leaves, and then just anything that I can kind of squish off, that's what and like not chop, that's what I'm taking and I'm putting on top. And like I said, it is gonna slightly protect, like when you take this out of the oven, even with a lid on it, you'll see that these get kind of like blackened a little bit, which is kind of nice because it gives like a little char to it. But it is gonna protect a little bit the stuff underneath it. The liquid's also gonna do a lot of that work. But we're just gonna do our due diligence here. And then I'm again gonna add some more of the sauerkraut. I'm not gonna use the whole can today. I probably used about 60% of the can. But that's where I'm gonna leave it. If you wanna use the whole can, you can actually do that. You can use none if you wanted to do that. But you do need the juice from the sauerkraut to go into the sauce. So you're using that juice anyway, you might as well use some of the sauerkraut. Okay. She's rolled, she's done. We're going lid on. Okay. I'm going to put that into our oven. It's heavy, please be careful. I'm really lucky that I have an oven this high up, or my back would be gone right now. And that's it. We're done. It's gonna cook in there for at least an hour and a half, up to honestly, however long you want it to cook. And then when you're ready, you can take it out and enjoy one of your stuffed cabbage rolls. Maybe make some mashed potatoes, maybe have some bread with it, sop up some of that juice in a really nice way. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any final questions before I say goodbye to anybody that has found this video at a later date? Essentially what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to answer any last minute questions, and then I will say goodbye. I'll give them a little spiel. We'll end this video. And then for those of you who are here live, I probably will stay and hang for another 5 to 10 minutes with you guys. And then I'll be out probably getting mashed potatoes made, to be honest, is what I'll do after this. Yeah, can you send me that whole Dutch oven full of cabbage rolls? No. That's mine. 2 hours felt like 30 minutes. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's not, and I've been talking, like, right? We've been talking and going pretty slow the whole time. It's a lot. Like a lot of times with recipes, it's like you're doing a little prep and then you're cooking and then you're just kind of, especially with my recipes, it's like, doing something for an hour or two and then you come back to it and then you do a little something and you come back to it. And it's just like, it's a really long recipe. It's a long recipe because it's in here for 3 hours, right? This one is kind of labor intensive, but it's just, you just kind of go through and then you're done. It's like everything's in one big go. And then you can forget about it until you're ready to eat. So, okay, ideas for excess stuffing mixture if you run out of cabbage. Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if I've ever I say that, but like it's just because like right, so this isn't my first rodeo. I have a whole extra head of cabbage here because I wasn't sure if I was gonna need more cabbage to cook. You could probably, I'm trying to think of a way for you to cook that. Because it's not gonna have, it's not, I mean, you could cook it. You could cook it in an oven, like make little patties or make little meatballs and cook it in an oven. But the problem is that you have the rice in it, and so you don't have liquid to help that rice cook, which means that it's not going to be great unless it's cooked in something else. So I would say if you made any kind of sauce, it doesn't really matter. Like there's not a lot going on in the flavors here, right? We have egg, we have onion, we have meat, salt and pepper. If you made any kind of sauce and then made meatballs, and I would probably suggest you make smaller meatballs, okay? Like little guys. Kind of like when people do like the Swedish meatballs or whatever, like appetizers where you can kind of just skewer and like in one bite. I would make small meatballs and I would sit them in the sauce and then cover your pan, and cook them on your stovetop in a pan or a pot with a cover to steam them through and let them absorb, and cook them that way. And I feel like that would be fine. But I would also suggest, actually, okay, I'm changing things up a little bit. Think of it as a meatball. I bake them in your oven and then put them in the sauce. And baking them in the oven is going to make sure that they don't disintegrate into your sauce. And then putting them into a sauce and cooking it is going to make sure that rice cooks through and that they take on the flavor. But I think that's the only thing that you're going to be able to do with anything left over. And I know that that's a lot of extra steps. So it's really up to you as to whether or not you want to trash that or you want to try to use it. It's a fun way to experiment in your kitchen, that's for sure. You could just get like a spaghetti, like if you have like a pre-prepared sauce of some kind or a soup, a pre-prepared soup, you can essentially make the meatballs, cook them in cook them in your oven. I guess that's probably about 400. Let's see if I can right quick here. Yeah. Oh, good. I'm so glad my brain did it right. And then I was like, I just need to double check to make sure. So if you cook it in your oven at 400 degrees, about 204 Celsius, for maybe 20 minutes if they're small meatballs, for 20 minutes. And then those meatballs would then get taken off of the tray, tossed into your sauce, your soup, whatever you're cooking them in. And then that would probably cook for at least another 30 minutes. And then you could eat them and they'd probably be pretty good. Is that helpful? That's what you would have to, I think that's the only way that you would be able to make that work. Lindsay's already there. Lindsay's like, I second the extra stuffing question. I was just going to make meatballs. Look at you go, Lindsay. There you go. I have extra V8 so I can batch some extra sauce and make meatballs with it. Cool. I got you. Where do you post the end product picture? It looks so good, but would love to see the end product. The cover image for this recipe, right here. Oh God, are we backwards? Oh man, backwards. The cover image that just got placed on your screen is what that looks like when it's done over mashed potatoes. Look at that with fried bread, what I've been talking about this whole time. God, I want all of what's in that picture right now. I'm kind of sad I have to wait. It smells really good, and it's been smelling really good because of the tomato sauce, and like I have no desire to wait anymore. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I love your meatball recipe. Thank you. I appreciate that. I really like that meatball recipe too. Okay. I think that's anything. That's everything. Anything else? Last minute questions before we end the video? Any last minute questions about the recipe before we move on? Okay. Seeing none, let's call this video, let's adjourn this video. Okay. Thank you very much to everybody who cooked along with me today, or to anyone who is joining me at a later date and seeing this in our playlist section on my YouTube channel. I really appreciate all the support. I really hope that this video helps you learn how to make this dish. This dish is very special to me. This is something that my dad used to make with me when I was younger. And making this really kind of helped me feel closer to him. And it's just kind of one of those like nostalgic, very family-friendly meals that I am so happy to share with the world. So if you really liked this recipe or liked the process or have any questions, feel free to comment in the comment section of this YouTube video. I'm happy to answer anything, happy to like anything, happy to have any kind of conversation. Make this your own. You do not have to make this recipe exact. Like, I know that it's a family recipe, but if you want this to be the way that you like it, you do that. Like, food is meant to be made the way that you want to eat it. Take a recipe, make it your own. Please do that. And then you have something that is now yours. And we're connected in that way. And I really like the beauty of that. So, let's see. If you like what you've seen here, we have to do all the promotion, right? If you like what you've seen here, like and subscribe to this channel. I also have a website. It's alittlespoon.com. There are plenty of other recipes there that span from cocktails to baked goods to full-on meals, just like this one. There are a lot of notes. If you've listened to this entire video, which I know was quite long, there are a lot of tips, tricks, notes, and scientific information, just like what I talked in here, that are all written down into the FAQ section on these videos. Teaching is something that I really love to do, and so I try my best to give context and give lots of information with all of my cooking recipes. You can find me on Instagram at _little_spoon. I was not early enough to the app to not have the spaces or underscore in between the words, unfortunately, but that's where you can find me. And I post recipes there as well as on the website. There's just less information on Instagram because I have less there. If you want to support, you can join either from my website or from Instagram. You can join the newsletter. I send out a newsletter monthly that just basically says what I'm up to. It gives all the recipes that I'm going to be doing. It gives links to the lives, links to chit chats. I do Insta lives with a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, and we talk about food photography and we talk about recipe development and just all sorts of food things in general. So you'll have links to all of that and an update on what they're going to be for the next month. So you kind of can just see what I'm getting up to, which is kind of nice. And then I also have a Patreon that supports the website. It keeps ads off the website, and it supports the work that I'm doing in a very positive way. If you do monetarily support through Patreon, you also have access to a private Discord server. We hang out, we have a good time, we talk about food all day long, and we have monthly chats where we just kind of get on video call or audio. If you don't feel like turning on your camera, we're fine. And we just hang out and we talk about what we're up to cooking-wise, travel-wise, all that kind of stuff. It's a good time. It's a very good group. I'm happy to have them, happy to have my community. I'm happy to grow my community. And I just want to thank you guys for being here. So with that being said, thank you very much for joining me today with our stuffed cabbage recipe here at the A Little Spoon Kitchen. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.